From peaceful pleas to bloodied streets, IPOB's nonviolent quest met with Nigeria's lethal force. In the vibrant markets of Aba and the quiet villages of Enugu, the remnants of the Biafran War persisted like the smoke from a fire that has long been extinguished. It was in 1967 that the eastern region of Nigeria proclaimed its independence as the Republic of Biafra, under the leadership of the charismatic Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu. This declaration led to a devastating 3-year conflict that resulted in the loss of over 2 million lives, predominantly civilians, due to starvation, bombings, and unrelenting federal attacks. The Igbo people, central to Biafra, suffered immensely. Pogroms in the north had already forced hundreds of thousands to return home, only to confront a siege that transformed their aspiration for self-determination into a horrific reality of famine and genocide. By 1970, Biafra capitulated, and the federal government assured a stance of no victor, no vanquished. However, for many Igbos, the scars remained unhealed, as economic neglect, political exclusion, and a persistent feeling of marginalization continued to fester like an untreated wound. Fast forward to 2012, in the humid expanse of southeast Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu, a British-Nigerian broadcaster born mere months after the onset of the war, had devoted years to nurturing these grievances. Operating from his base in London, he hosted Radio Biafra, a station transmitting passionate broadcasts into the airwaves, denouncing the injustices of the Nigerian state, the oil wealth extracted from Igbo land without any reinvestment, the absence of Igbo presidents since independence, and the oppressive military presence that recalled the horrors of the war. Kanu had previously been affiliated with the Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign State of Biafra, MASOB, a peaceful organization established in 1999 by Ralph Uwazuruike. However, ideological differences prompted him to separate, establishing the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, as a new voice for the long-standing aspiration. "We pursue self-determination through a referendum, not through arms," Kanu asserted in his initial broadcasts. IPOB was no militia. It is a movement of enlightenment, flyers distributed in markets, sit-at-home orders to symbolize quiet defiance, and global rallies waving the rising sun flag of Biafra. Young Igbos, frustrated by unemployment and forgotten promises, flocked to it, graduates, traders, even diaspora kin sending funds from afar. It was a revival, nonviolent and methodical, rooted in the UN Charter's right to self-determination. By 2015, IPOB's message had ignited a spark. Protests erupted across the old eastern Nigeria, demanding Kanu's release after his October arrest on treason charges, a move that smacked of silencing dissent. In Onitsha's crowded streets, thousands marched peacefully on August 30th, chanting "Biafra Lives" and hoisting placards calling for a UN-supervised vote on independence. They were unarmed, no stones hurled, no barricades built, just voices raised in remembrance of the war's ghosts. Eyewitnesses recall women in wrappers leading songs, children waving flags, elders sharing tales of kwashiorkor-ravaged siblings. Similar gatherings bloomed in Aba, Port Harcourt, Ebony, Rivers, and Enugu, peaceful assemblies at schools and churches, where speakers invoked Article 20 of Nigeria's own constitution, affirming the unalienable right to self-determination. Amnesty International later documented over 87 such events from August 2015 onward, finding them largely peaceful, with any minor scuffles born of panic, not provocation. IPOB's strategy was deliberate, non-violence as a shield, drawing the world's gaze to Biafra land's plight without giving Abuja an excuse for reprisal. But the Nigerian government, under President Muhammadu Buhari, a veteran of the federal forces that crushed Biafra, saw shadows of 1967 in every banner. The Biafra's agitations were unimaginable atrocities, officials claimed, lumping IPOB with Boko Haram's ghosts, despite the group's avowed pacifism. Tensions peaked around May 30th, the annual Biafra Remembrance Day, marking Ojukwu's 1967 declaration. In 2016, As dawn broke over Onitsha on May 29th, IPOB supporters gathered at Nkpor Motor Park for prayers and lectures honoring the fallen heroes. They were a motley crowd, students in uniforms, market women pausing their trades, families clutching photos of lost kin. No weapons, just candles and hymns. Then, without warning, the Nigerian army rolled in, trucks rumbling like thunder, soldiers in fatigue spilling out with rifles cocked. Eyewitnesses, their voices trembling in later testimonies, described the horror. They surrounded us like we were insurgents, then the shooting started. Bullets rained everywhere, into backs, into chests. People fell screaming, blood pooling on the asphalt. Amnesty's investigators confirmed it. Live ammunition fired at point-blank range, no tear gas prelude, no dispersal order. At least 17 lay dead that day, with over 50 wounded. The army carted away bodies to hide the toll, but morgues overflowed with the evidence. The pattern repeated like a grim refrain. On February 9, 2016, at Aba National High School, hundreds assembled for a rally unarmed, singing anthems of unity. Videos captured the encirclement, military vehicles boxing them in, then gunfire erupting without a shout. It was a peaceful meeting, one survivor told Amnesty, until the soldiers turned it into a slaughter. 9 died on the spot. Dozens more herded into vans for interrogation that meant torture. By August 2016, the tally was chilling. At least 150 Biafran activists gunned down across the southeast, per Amnesty's exhaustive probe of videos, photos, and 146 eyewitness accounts. The military's defense: self-defense against panic and apprehension. But the evidence painted a different picture: tactics honed for war zones, not crowds of civilians. In Onitsha's December 2nd, 9 activists fell alongside 2 policemen, but probes revealed the gunfire began with federal forces. Pockets of stone throwing emerged only after the first shots. Desperate reactions from the cornered. Nnamdi Kanu, rotting in a Abuja cell, became the movement's martyr. His broadcasts had warned of this. They fear our words because they echo the truth of Biafra's betrayal. Released on bail in 2017, only to be abducted in Ken in 2021, Kanu's plight fueled IPOB's resolve. The government proscribed the group as terrorists that September, a label a court later struck down as unlawful. Yet the crackdowns continued: raids on homes, abductions in the night, live rounds fired at sit-at homes honoring the Biafra fallen heroes. What began as a nonviolent cry for referendum had morphed, under barrages of bullets, into a symbol of unyielding resistance. Today, as May 30th dawns each year, Biafra land falls silent, a lockdown of remembrance, markets shuttered, highways empty. Families light candles for the over 2 million Biafra fallen heroes and the 150 more felled by modern rifles. In London's exile communities and Atlanta's diaspora halls, they gather, flags at half-mast. The dream of Biafra endures, not in vengeance, but in the quiet power of memory. For in the echo of those first peaceful marches and the thunder of unjust guns lies the story of a people who refuse to forget. Self-determination is a right, not a crime, and no hail of bullets can silence its call. Family Writers Press International,